if you're not genuine about something, then you probably shouldn't be doing that because there are so many other things you can be doing. It's really a matter of thinking of like what makes you happy, as cliche as it sounds, when you are spending your time. And if something makes you happy, right, you'll realize that there's always something bigger you can do with that happiness.
Hey, I'm Bailey.
And I'm Stephanie. Welcome to Never Too Early, a podcast where we showcase young activists, NGO founders, and entrepreneurs.
In this episode, we speak with Justin Kim, a high school student based in Hong Kong. He is the youngest world Taekwondo HQ master in Hong Kong and uses his passion for martial arts to fuel the social change he makes through his organization Kick Action HK. He is also the founder and leader of various other organizations relating to his passions in debate and innovation.
Continue listening to hear about how he uses his talents to make a difference, why he values patience, and his advice for students who are still looking to find what they are passionate about.
Welcome back to Never Too Early.
Today, we're super excited to have Justin on the podcast. So as a fun question to kick us off, we'd like to ask you, Justin, what is something that you're grateful for today?
First of all, as corny as it sounds, I'm grateful for this opportunity, right? Like, it's great to have the opportunity to discuss, to sit down with other change makers around Hong Kong. Like, it's pretty inspirational, given that you guys have a lot of projects that you pursue as well. So I'm really grateful for that. I'm also very grateful for the fact that I had really nice steak today. Yeah, what are you grateful for?
For me, I think I'm really grateful for the great weather today. In Hong Kong, it's been quite a weird few days. Like, some days it's very cold, some days it's just very hot. I think today the weather was really pretty, and as I went back home from school, I really got to enjoy the relaxing weather. I'm really grateful for that. Bailey, how about you?
Today, I'm really grateful for school. As silly as that may sound, I had a pretty good school day and had classes I really enjoyed and actually were really engaging. I was able to have thought-provoking discussions. So that's something that I'm happy about. Slightly shifting gears and just moving on from that. Justin, as we said, thank you so much for being on this podcast. Would you mind giving a short introduction of who you are or what you do to people who may not exactly know about all the things you do yet?
Yeah, for sure. I'm Justin Kim. I'm currently a junior in high school at Chinese International School. I'm Korean/American, legally at least. And there are a couple passions that I have, including debating, primarily martial arts as well, more specifically Taekwondo. I'm also really into things like tech, computer science, as well as student politics, I guess. And I guess just a couple of things about me that are quite fairly interesting, I guess, is that I'm a huge Taylor Swift fan. I also love Olivia Rodrigo music. I think that I have really good music taste, and that kind of applies to a lot of other tastes that I have, like food, entertainment. And yeah, I guess I'm a pretty otherwise mundane person, but yeah.
Amazing.
I'm happy to be here again.
Well, yeah, and I have to agree with you with the whole Taylor Swift and Olivia Rodrigo fan. I'm up there with you. But one thing I really love that you said was about turning your passions into, making an impact. So we'd love to just look into your passion in martial arts more and see what you're doing with that.
Okay. I guess for sure. So martial arts, I guess, is something that it's really personal for me because it's something that I pursued since I was 4 years old, and probably the hobby that I pursued for the longest, for sure, and I put the most time into. It started with something that I felt made me look very cool from a young age. Doing martial arts, it really was in alignment with a lot of the TV series that I watched, right? Like Ninjago, Ben 10, where there are a lot of martial arts. I thought it looked pretty cool. But I think as I got older, I started to get better at it as well, winning things like gold medals, silver medals around competitions. But I feel like what really revolutionized that and made my passion evolve to something bigger than just about myself was last summer, when I was able to receive a master's license from the South Korean government. When I received the master's license, that made me the youngest licensed master from World Taekwondo headquarters. And that kind of made me feel like I had a sense of, power and responsibility to actually share this beautiful martial art that I've taken a lot of mental health benefits away from, and something that has provided me with a lot of fulfillment to others. And more specifically, given that I did do a history and individuals and societies research project on domestic and migrant workers, I felt that this really connected really well, because on one hand, I'm researching about the many abuse cases on a physical, verbal, and sexual level that a lot of migrant workers, domestic workers face, and on the other hand, I'm learning literally how to defend yourselves in pragmatic situations where you may feel threatened. So I started to kind of develop the connection with one another. And I guess this sort of sense of credibility that I established within myself made me really push this responsibility that I had. So I guess that's what really made me feel like martial arts was an extremely powerful tool that could really help these domestic workers. I guess just more specifically on what martial arts has done specifically is that, historically, it was founded on the idea of combating oppression. You saw that the Koreans invented it in response to Japanese annexation, which is quite interesting. I also drew the intellectual link from there. So I think that from there on, just practicing it more and, engaging with domestic workers, I felt that, why not start a self-defense program where I could share this passion that I had for social good.
That is so amazing. It's just inspiring how you can take like your hobby, it went into like a professional level, I guess, and now how you're using it to help minorities in Hong Kong. So following up on that, would you mind giving some background on the domestic worker situation in Hong Kong and perhaps why specifically you want to help them?
Yeah, so I think what's really unique about domestic workers, and at least Hong Kong specifically, is that I think domestic workers share a very intimate relationship with a lot of members in the Hong Kong community, right? In many cases, they literally live with you. And at least for my domestic worker, right, I've been living with her for an extremely long time, and she's almost been like a second mother to me, right? I'm doing things like making breakfast for me, making sure that I feel good. Yeah, these kind of things that really inspire you to look at these domestic workers as beyond just, people who do domestic chores and help out with the household work, but rather people, who you genuinely care about in your life. And, like similar to how you would get concerned if you heard that your friends and maybe, your other people that were of great concern to your friends were being actively harmed, that kind of raises your eyebrow and makes you want to care a bit. I guess this was the kind of same experience that I had with domestic workers specifically, especially when I'm constantly seeing like even my domestic workers as friends start to leave Hong Kong because they've been abused and they've terminated relationships with their employers. And to see that, as well as just the news as well, really strikes to me as concerning, because domestic workers, they do so much for Hong Kong, not only just on an economic level where the domestic workers' presence literally allows for a lot of women to go to work, right? But they've also done things like take care of me, right? I think that applies to a lot of other household families as well. So because of the significance on an economic and cultural level, I think that there is a sense of responsibility to really want to create community inclusion for these domestic workers. And yeah, I felt that martial arts, as I said earlier, right, was my way of sort of saying thank you and trying to integrate them back into, Hong Kong, where they can feel welcome.
Absolutely. That is really so inspiring, as we said. So would you mind explaining a little bit more about what Kick Action does on a day-to-day basis or with your initiatives, and also how you see that impact and how what you do change the perspectives or the lives of these domestic workers that you guys help and work with?
Yeah, for sure. I guess just more specifically on Kick Action, it's a nonprofit organization based on obviously helping domestic workers with martial arts. And on a weekly basis, we basically run 2 self-defense programs a week on Saturdays and Sundays, on the respective days in which domestic workers take leave, at least by law. We host sessions in the morning that are around 90 to 120 minutes long, where we teach them, Taekwondo, boxing, Muay Thai in practical settings, for them to not only defend themselves, but actually, excel in the martial arts themselves. So that's a great way for them to learn how to defend themselves, gain a lot of mental and physical benefits that can, really mitigate a lot of the stress that they feel in their day-to-day work. Moreover, it's in these self-defense programs, we make sure to emphasize things like resistance and discipline, because that is inherent in martial arts. And we think that we have the philosophy that if you can master discipline within the martial arts, that would extrapolate to other things as well, and help you deal with other uncomfortable situations that you might face in your day-to-day life. So we run those programs on a weekly basis. But obviously, our team is not just a bunch of martial arts instructors who just do kicks and punches and all that, but we also have engineers as well as marketers. Marketers are interesting because they obviously do a lot for our socials. But what's interesting is that we're actually planning on trying to do more for domestic workers than just martial arts, but actually including arts themselves, right? And we are trying to collaborate with other arts-based organizations there, because we do think that arts and martial arts, they share a lot of the same benefits in terms of mental health benefits, alleviating stress, etc. Now, finally, the interesting part is the engineers right now, because right now, we're in the middle of discussing with Help for Domestic Workers, a legal organization that provides pro bono services to domestic workers, legal services. We're trying to work on the first pop-up martial arts gym in Hong Kong. So we've applied for a huge grant from over like 50K Hong Kong dollars from our school to help us fund our engineers to build equipment like dummies, heavy bags, etc., to put in this in a gym that domestic workers and other ethnic minorities can go to on Saturday and Sunday mornings to just train themselves. Now, the reasoning behind that is that we want to create a self-sustaining program that allows for domestic workers to access martial arts without even the presence of martial arts instructors. That way, we think there can be a sustainable program that continues to run even when me and my colleagues are going to university or we're having full-time employments and can't run these services, right? At least they have this gym that they can go to and continue to pass on knowledge within themselves. So it's this kind of a community what we want to build, and obviously engineering is an integral part of that, because we literally have student engineers willing to go through all the materials and try and assemble them together using mathematical calculations and all that.
Wow, that's so amazing. Like, I'm excited to see that happen too. So really excited for you. Building up on that, could you talk about one of the biggest lessons that you've learned from starting Kick Action? So like, it must have been not easy to start an entire organization and have like weekly classes. Yeah, any lesson you've learned or anything you've taken away from this entire journey?
Yeah, 100%. I think I've taken away a lot, and probably the one that strikes the biggest to me and means the most to me is patience. And this is on an organizational level, which I think would be helpful for a lot of students who are ambitious and willing to kickstart their own projects, right? It's really important to have patience, I think, with any kind of organization that you're part of or that you find or you start, right? Because initially for me, I was getting like 1 or 3 domestic workers attending sessions every week, which was quite stressful, and it wouldn't even be the same ones coming back over and over again. So this made me question like, is my teaching bad? Are my fundamental beliefs in how these programs should run like flawed or something? Like, I kept questioning myself, right? But I think that throughout, like, just continuous trust in you and your team and wanting to just keep pushing for that vision that you had when starting this organization in the first place is so crucial, because with patience, I trusted my media team to post a bunch of marketing ads about like the sessions that we did, and eventually it blew up on Facebook. It took on like 15,000 views, and we started getting a lot of people coming in. So I think that patience is extremely important, and I just like to kind of do a derivative off that a little bit by talking about my debate as well, because with debate, at least, I never really sort of engaged with the Hong Kong community or global community in terms of debate until like quite recently. And I think that it started with a grassroots thing where I started a debate club within my school, within a small community. And just throughout time, right, my passion progressed to the point where I felt I was ready to share my passions and sharing debate tournaments to the wider community. So yeah, patience is extremely important.
That is so amazing, and just such an important lesson that I think is really underappreciated or not noticed a lot of times. I don't think a lot of people think about the patience that goes into starting a youth organization and working on it and really watching it slowly grow and accelerate. So that is truly amazing and a great point to add. And you also mentioned your work with debate. So I'd love to ask you about that and how your work with debate actually impacts and makes a difference in the wider community.
Yeah, for sure. Interestingly enough, I think that debate and martial arts are similar in a lot of different ways as well, because on one hand, right, martial arts is the very physically engaging, art that really forces you to, have all these, like, develop all these skills like discipline, mental resistance that I talked to you about earlier. I think debate is the intellectual side of that. because it like martial arts, you have to be on your feet. It puts you in situations that you'll feel vulnerable and uncomfortable with. But the beauty of debate is that if you're able to overcome these, and respond to those, then that's ultimately when you've achieved success. So there's a similar philosophy and alignment with martial arts there. With debate specifically, it's something that means a lot to me because it pretty much encompasses most of the topics that I'm interested in, right? Like social justice, economic development, politics, etc. And what's great about debate is that it also allows you to intellectually discover yourself and basically what you believe and stand in. And I think that that's something that works really well in terms of people who are in, I don't know if this is a bit extreme, but like existential crises, people who don't know what they like, people who don't know what they want. Debating was an activity that, at least for me, right, solidified a lot of the stances that I had on a political and societal level, right? It's one of the things that made me sort of understand how the harms that minorities go through every day, the barriers to entry that they have, and a lot of different things that we take for granted as locals in Hong Kong. So I think that directly links to me having larger passion for other things like martial arts and tech. So yeah, debating is that real intellectual bridge between where you are right now to the potential impacts that you can be making through your intellectual discovery. So that's been really great. As of what I've done with debate specifically, currently I lead 2 debate organizations outside of school. One is Hong Kong Interschool Debating Organization, which is an historic organization focused on promoting debate in Hong Kong. Today, just now, actually, we came back from teaching Islamic students debate. So we really try to appeal to as many groups as possible to make sure debate is accessible. Whereas the other one, HKO Dubs DCI, is an international organization providing tournaments for free for absolutely everyone. So people can have a competitive debating experience without any charge. Yeah.
That is so amazing. And the fact that you're so engaged in other organizations to promote debate to others really shows how passionate you are. I guess as teenagers, a lot of us don't really know what our direction in life is or where they want to head towards. So it seems like you're pretty put together and you know your values and your beliefs. So just wanted to ask, do you have any advice for those that are still kind of lost in their life direction, or how would you suggest them to start to find their purpose in their community as well?
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of people have this misconception that, some people know exactly what they want to do. That's not true. I don't know what jobs that I want to go to, what I want to study at university, when I'll get a girlfriend or not. There are a lot of different things that are still quite ambiguous at this stage. So yeah, I think the first thing to know is that not everyone has their life figured out, right? I might be sort of quite understanding that I love martial arts and debate, and I know how to promote these for other people for social good. But there are a lot of other things I don't know. As of just, I guess, some insight that I think would be valuable for myself is maybe just the student culture and how easy it is to sort of get lost into this hustle mindset that a lot of people in Hong Kong have, which is great because it shows that we're really intellectual, capable, and competitive people. But it can get toxic as well, leading to a lot of people going oh, what am I doing with my life? What do I do outside of just grades, right? I think the key point over here is identifying that absolutely everyone is different, right? My skill sets are going to be different to yours. My interests are going to be different to yours. It's okay to not conform to what other people do, right? Just because other people know that they like ballet or Taekwondo doesn't mean that you have to like those as well. It's really a matter of thinking of what makes you happy, as cliche as it sounds, when you are spending your time. And if something makes you happy, right, you'll realize that there's always something bigger you can do with that happiness. For example, if I really love watching, Squid Game, I know that I can double this happiness by watching with someone else as well. Even something as minimal as that. But also if I really love drawing, right? Maybe my drawing can be used to send things like political messages to groups I care about. Maybe my drawing can be used as a way to promote things like sustainability, another issue I care about. It's really about just thinking of what things make you happy and how those can link to other issues that you care about. Because inevitably, there are going to be things that you care about, whether you encounter them in school, whether you hear them on a day-to-day basis, whether you see that on Instagram, there are always going to be things you care about. And you'll find that your passions can directly link to those. And yeah, you can be creative with that as well, right? Sometimes they might not have the most direct relationship, but I think that's why creativity exists, right? Thinking outside the box.
I really liked how you talked about just do what makes you happy and to share that happiness to more people. Actually, I think essentially that's what a change maker does, right? As of us here, we all have our own projects, and that all stems from what we enjoy ourselves, and we hope to share the same joy with other people. And so
To wrap us off, we have a few questions that we would like to ask you. For the first one, like what I mentioned just now, could you define in your words what is a change maker?
That's a really good question and something I've never been asked before. But I guess a change maker is someone that aims to foster, or at least is willing to put time and effort and just commitment to fostering and cultivating a community rich in what you value, right? And what you think can do society more justice, or what you think can make society even a little better. I think that really defines what a change maker is, because at the end of the day, change is really sort of contingent on what you perceive as, a difference in the first place, right? And that's inherently tied to your value and what you think is right, what you think is valuable. So I think that if you're able to foster a community and something that you love, or a passion that you have, and you've seen it grow, then that's a change that you've made.
That is wonderful to hear. The next question we have that we like to ask a lot of our guests is, who is one, or even two if you have multiple, who is one female entrepreneur that you look up to, whether it be an entrepreneur, an activist, a change maker, just a role model you have?
That's actually quite hard, because there are quite a lot of female leaders as a whole that I look up to a lot. But I think that someone in particular that comes to mind is probably, as controversial as this might be, I really admire AOC. And the reason why I say that is because I think that on one hand, right, there are times where people accuse her of being way too radical, etc. But for the large part of her political uprising, she has been extremely loyal to her values and been original to that, right? It's like when you think of a grassroots movement, she's the first person that a lot of people sort of resort to, right? I think just being able to stick with a community that has been supporting you since day one and really buy into your interests and what you believe in life, and just see that grow and that community, like the mass following grow, that's really inspirational for me. And I think that ties directly back to what I talked about with the definition of change maker, because when you're able to see, yourself cultivate a community of people who you can inspire and people who actively want to engage with you, that's when you've created success. I think that's something AOC has done. Not necessarily entrepreneurship, but leadership in an important area in society, politics.
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of people look up to her too. And to wrap us off, what is one final piece of advice you would give to other ambitious youth out there that are trying to make a difference, but haven't had the chance to?
Yeah, for sure. One more advice I'd give is always be genuine. And the reason why I say that is from my experience in directly working with organizations, working with my own organizations, as well as seeing other people work in organizations, is that if you're not genuine about something, if you're pursuing a task or you're doing something with an organization that you wouldn't spend your free time doing and have a smile on your face, then you probably shouldn't be doing that, because there's so many other things you can be doing, and you're probably just narrowing yourself down, which will lead you to which will cause you a lot of stress and just general unhappiness. Yeah, I think that's number one thing, right? Always make sure that what you're doing has a purpose that you agree with and you completely want to push forward, right? Because we're all capable. We really are. It's just a matter of finding the best way in which we can optimize our capabilities. That's number one, I guess. And number two is that when failure comes, I'd like to cite Mark Zuckerberg, a quote from his Harvard commencement speech in 2016, when he said that the freedom to fail is one that should be embraced, because that is essentially the biggest catalyst to success. He said something along the lines of those. I really take inspiration to that. Like, you need to accept that failures are inevitable, but look at them as stepping stones and ways to keep continuing, right? That's the same thing that happened with Kick Action when I didn't have a lot of people. And I think other people should realize that failures are inevitable, and how you set back from it and how you come back are essentially what defines you as successful.
Wow. That was a lot to take in, but it was all so insightful. And I absolutely love how you quoted Mark Zuckerberg. And I think any excited, ambitious young person out there looking to make a difference will really find value in those words. Before we end this, some of our guests might want to get in touch with you or see what you're doing with Kick Action and Debate. Would you mind letting us know how we can find that, whether it be through social media, your LinkedIn?
Yeah, for sure. I'm obviously always available in a lot of different areas. Like on LinkedIn, you can find me at Justin Maru Kim. then you can sort of see a lot of the projects that I do. Just on the social media accounts specifically. For Kick Action, you can find us on kickaction.hk on Instagram and Facebook. You can also check out our website, which is kickaction.org. As of debate, Hong Kong IDO, you can find on Facebook at Hong Kong IDO, as well as Instagram at Hong Kong IDO. The last thing I guess I'd recommend you check is CISxIdeas. It's a Seminar Innovation Society at CIS, and we're basically opening a hackathon where you can use your tech skills, your design skills to create a change and solution to the problem of quality education. Sponsorships from Microsoft as well. Free computers as prizes.
That is amazing. And with that said, thank you so much for coming on to our podcast tonight. It was an amazing conversation, and we can't wait to have more with you.
For sure. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Bailey. I appreciate your time, and thank you for that fruitful discussion.
Thank you.
Huge thank you to Justin for coming onto the podcast. I don't know about you guys, but I can confidently say that I found his advice incredibly insightful.
Same here. If you would like to hear the insights of other young change makers, tune in to this podcast every Wednesday at 8 a.m. Hong Kong time. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this podcast now.
To stay updated and involved, follow at nevertooearly.pod on Instagram. We'd love to hear from all of you.
All links are ready in the description of this episode. Catch you next time.